Sam Pitroda, you're an advisor to the Indian Prime Minister on IT infrastructure and innovation. You're the chairman of the National Innovation Council. You've just made a very interesting speech here about innovation and about how innovation shouldn't just be targeted at the rich, but should look at the bottom of the pyramid.
Traditionally, best brains in the world have been busy solving problems of the rich, who really don't have problems to solve. As a result, problems of the poor really do not get the right kind of talent and attention it deserves. So I think it is important to recognize that the problems of the poor do need best of the best technology, right kind of talent, because that's where the challenge is to scale, create sustainable development, and also to provide affordable solutions. And it's pretty challenging, and there is need to innovate. It means innovations in agriculture, water, animal husbandry, biotech, materials, to create opportunities for poor to increase their income. It's not about looking at people at the bottom of the pyramid as markets. It is about looking at people at the bottom of the pyramid as producers in the food chain. And that requires a different way of thinking.
But essentially, the private sector is going to look at the bottom of the pyramid as a market.
Yes, but
and
somebody
that's
has
why
to
the
look
money
at,
isn't there.
Yeah, but that's why first you have to look at bottom of the pyramid as producers. If they can't really produce and increase their income, they have no money to buy anything. So how do you create a market from people who can't afford to save anything? Yeah. So I think the priorities have to change a little bit. First set of priorities ought to focus on looking at them as the producers. Once you increase their income, they will then be able to consume more goods and services.
But how does this happen? Are you thinking that this is where the government has to play a role?
No, it could be private also. You provide better seeds to improve productivity in agriculture. You provide, better vocational education training so their children can get better job in construction or in, auto industry or in, building infrastructure. So, one, technology that improves their productivity. Two, vocational education for the young in rural areas to increase their earning capacity.
We are seeing some innovation at what is the bottom of the pyramid. Portable ECG machines are now being used. We're seeing farmers using phones to check market prices and so on.
The farmers using phone has to do with really innovations by Indian entrepreneurs in reaching out to rural areas with very low ARPU, because most of these farmers don't generate a lot of income per month from their telephone calls for the operators. But operators have innovated to a point. They can make money from very low ARPU. That's an innovation. Then only you could make it affordable. If you could make it affordable, they'll buy.
With the National Innovation Council, you're chairman of the council. You're looking at major schemes that are going to cost billions of dollars.
Well, we are looking at several things. One, our job is to really be cheerleaders. So we are saying innovation has to be a platform. We want to seed innovation ecosystems. We want to emphasize drivers. But in the process, we are doing 3 or 4 very important sort of initiatives, or we are taking initiatives. For example, one, we want to create a $1 billion innovation fund which focuses on inclusive growth-based innovations. So innovations for the bottom of the pyramid. It will be fund of a fund. It will be a sort of private fund Government may invest some little money, seed capital.
Well, you say little money, it's $1 billion.
$1 billion.
And then from that, you're expecting that to be something like 10% of the
so
total.
we can just go invest that billion as fund of a fund in other areas where local people would invest. So that's one initiative. Another initiative is we are identifying 20 innovation clusters where there are local industries which are very traditional, could be in machine tools, could be in textile, could be in pharmaceutical, auto industry, auto parts, where we could seed innovation. So provide innovation toolkit, encourage local entrepreneurs, show them how to file patents, how to do patent search, get venture capital, angel investors, and really build these 20 clusters as innovation clusters. Then we want to identify 20 universities where we can again seed innovation culture with university industry partnerships, again venture capital, private equity, angel investors, and all of that. On top of this, we want to create many sectorial councils, a council on biotech, heart disease, diabetes, auto parts, council on agriculture. These vertical councils would encourage domain experts to put together a blueprint for decade of innovation. Because at the end of the day, domain experts know their field better than anybody else. They will have to be active to really give us a roadmap for the decade of innovation in their sector. So if we get 50, 70 sectors going, not that all of those would be very successful, but this way we will encourage innovation culture. It is all about mindset. Our job is to change the mindset in the country. In a country of billion people, it's very difficult. It doesn't come easy. So we have to try lots of things. Not that everything we try would work well.
How would you characterize India's stage of development in terms of innovation at the moment? It seems reasonably embryonic, given the relatively low number of patents compared to...
But I think patent is not necessarily a good measure. It's a Western measure. It's nice to have lots of patents, but just because you have lots of patents doesn't mean that you are the most innovative. Okay, I mean there are patents and there are patents. Okay, so I would say diversity is a fertile ground for innovation. India has great diversity. So diversity gives India an opportunity to innovate, one. Two, we have had tradition of innovations. India invented zero, with which you could write a big number. There were astronomy experts in India, there were mathematicians, so India has had tradition. You look at our buildings, Taj Mahal, temples, this is all innovation. But the modern innovation is what we are looking for. Okay. So you have had the tradition of innovation, you have diversity, you have a need, you have a young population, 550 million young below age of 25. On top of this, today you have different sets of tools. Web adds new dimension to innovation. Internet and web opens up the system. You can be sitting in a small little village in India and look at the world, which you couldn't do 10 years ago. Okay. So our job is to really build infrastructure for innovation by providing high capacity broadband connectivity to our universities, to our libraries, to our R&D institutions, to lots of young people. And they in turn would use these tools to solve their problems. We have a thing called frugal innovation, jugaad. Though it's not a great invention or innovation, but it does offer quick solutions using local approach, local material to fix something. and there are thousands and thousands of people solving daily problems. So at the end of the day, innovation has to be about large number of people innovating for the people, by the people, of all kinds. And innovation should not be really the domain of R&D experts and laboratories.
You spoke here about the need for a balance between the public and the private sectors. But when you're talking about innovation, isn't that primarily going to come from the private sector?
Not necessarily. I think there are government labs all over the world, whether it is CERN or Brookhaven National Lab or anywhere else. Government laboratories do invent. Governments do spend a lot of money on R&D. Private sector is ultimately the beneficiary of invention to create products and services. But there is room for innovations in re-engineering of processes. So there is a room for innovation in delivering public services. Legal system needs to use new tools, new technology. The legal reforms. You need innovations in legal system. And look at our legal system world over. So very complex, so very obsolete. Okay, are we using technology in our legal system? So I am beginning to question everything we do, and not that everything I question is right, but out of that will come answers. I may not be around to see the answers, but we got to restructure this world for large number of people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, young generation. We cannot continue the world the way it has been. So I have some issues personally, and I am not an economist. I don't understand a lot of it. I have issues with the fact that we want to go back to what it was. Everybody wants to put a lot of money in the system to go back to what it was, as opposed to saying, wait a minute, you can't go back to what it was. So don't even try to fix it. You got to go forward. And going forward, it is not going to be the way it was. Accept that. And I find a disconnect.
Sam Pitroda, some interesting food for thought.
Thank you.
You're advisor to the Indian Prime Minister on IT infrastructure and innovation. Thanks for joining us on INSEAD Knowledge.